Man, middle of the week already. 4th of July weekend. Damn, we're rolling into the football season. Good afternoon, all. Dan Sileo here on the National Football Show, the fastest growing show in broadcasting. I say that with great respect. Man, the amount of people that have been rolling onto the show, we so appreciate everybody coming aboard the show, and all the people that chime in, share the show, like the show. We really appreciate you guys, man. Each and every single day, 4 to 6 Eastern time, right here on the JAKIB Media channel, the National Football Show. We thank you so much. All right, Power Pack show again. Just in a couple minutes, we're going to talk to Gerry Dinardo. He's part of the Big Ten broadcast. We'll talk a little bit about, Jim Harbaugh. Is it going to be finally the year? By the way, Gerry Dinardo played at Notre Dame. I've got to get to the bottom line here. I had Joe Montana on my national radio show a couple months ago, and when I brought the movie Rudy up, I got to tell you, man, Joe Montana just started laughing. Well, guess what? He was also on that team that they depicted in that movie, Rudy, and I can't wait to talk to Gerry. I just found that out this morning when somebody told me that I was having him on. They said, hey, ask him about Rudy. So I'm going to ask him about Rudy, the Big Ten. We'll talk to the former Indiana and LSU head football coach here in a couple minutes. Bottom of the hour, we're going to talk to, how would you like to own this? Are you ready? I want your full attention here. How would you like to have 4 Super Bowl rings, a bronze star, a Purple Heart to your resume? The legendary Rocky Bleier from those legendary Pittsburgh Steelers teams is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. We'll ask him about Mike Tomlin. We'll ask him about why the Pittsburgh Steelers are the gold standard when it comes to stability in the National Football League. And he's a very interesting man. Then at the top of the 5 o'clock hour, we will talk to Rick Doc Walker, who covers the Washington team thing. I really have a problem still saying that. To me, they'll always be the Redskins. But, hey, we have to be politically correct today. So the Washington team, sure, that makes all of you feel better. We're all good on that. All right, let's move on here. So what I like to do each and every single day, I'm a sports freak. Okay, I just love all sports. I really do. I love competition. I love competing. I love the fact, by the way, I got to show you this, and I want all of you to know this. This includes my boys, Krause, Cal, Big Joe. When you have a free moment, Google this. Who is the most hated team in American sports history? Do you know what will pop up? It'll pop up Sports Illustrated. And a couple of years back, my 1986 Hurricanes team was voted by Sports Illustrated as the most hated team in American sports. That's above the LeBron James Heatles. How about those Flyers teams? The Pistons, Bad Boys, all those legendary teams like the Yankees back in the day, the 78 Yankees. My team was voted the most hated team. And do you know, every time that I see that, I go like this, thank you, God. What a great merit badge. The trash talking that people did to us. How about this? We wore camouflage off an airplane. And we were getting ready to play a bowl game, and we had actual Tommy guns and machine guns and hand grenades that we got from like an Army-Navy store. We're walking off an airplane to get ready to play Penn State in camouflage gear, eye black and everything. I'm walking off, man. I got like bullets on me, and I look like some Comanchero, man. I'm ready to go, man. Let's go get these guys. I'm walking off, man. They're putting a microphone in front of me. Hey, by the way, I can't even believe I do this job because back then I hated everybody who stuck a mic in my face. I remember one time, man, somebody put a mic in my face. I bit off the mic head. And I'm like, hey, get that thing out of here, man. We're the Miami Hurricanes. So back in the day, I can't believe I was even that dude. And I love the fact that that's a merit badge. Well, last night I'm watching. I think it's the best pregame show there is when it comes to covering sports, and that is the NBA on TNT. Ernie and Shaq and Charles Barkley. Man, I love that. I love that pregame. And you know what Barkley was saying? I don't paraphrase this because I can do it only like Big Sills can. Man, why don't you shut up? I'm so sick and tired of how these athletes moan and cry over criticism. I guess Paul George is moaning and crying because, he calls himself Playoff Pete. And I'm like, Playoff P? You know what a Playoff P means to me? Are you consistent every night? That 41 you threw up the other night, man, I don't see that on a consistent basis from you, dog. I don't. I see you become Casper the Ghost sometimes. And so Barkley was like, shut up, dude. When you get better and you're a superstar, you got criticism. That's a merit badge. That is an absolute merit badge. When people are criticizing you and they expect great things from you, don't look at that as something that you would just put your head between your tail and go hide. That means you're relevant. In my business broadcasting today, when people are dogging Big Sills on social media or whatever, that's a great, I look at that as a merit badge. Thank you. Honestly, I say this every day. Thank you. Oh, you hate me? Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, I love that. We were just talking about my friend Howard Eskin in Philly. People hate that dude. But you know what I tell? And Howard always told me, he goes, hey, dog, if they hate you, they're talking about you. And that's all that matters is that you're relevant. Dude, it's a merit badge, like I said. And Barkley's right. Dude, shut up, man. You get paid $35 million a year. You get paid $500,000 a night. $500,000 a night, bro. Dude, act like it. And criticism is going to come your way. Okay? It is. It's going to come your way. But take it with a grain of salt, man. That means people are expecting massive things. Hey, Paul George is sitting in Indiana. And nobody expects anything out of the guy. When he was torturing the Miami Heat teams with LeBron James and Bosh and Wade on it, and he was just torturing those teams? Nobody expected anything of him then. Then he goes to the Clippers and he signs that max deal. You're making $35 million. All of a sudden, he gets kicked up here, man. They expect you to show up each and every single night. I have a headline that I had when I was back in college. Sileo backs his big mouth up against Oklahoma. I was talking so much trash that week that if I didn't play great against the Sooners, I should post that, baby. I love that. It's one of my favorite of all-time headlines. Sileo backs his big mouth up. That's exactly the headline. I'm going to post that bad puppy. And because we destroyed them. 28-10. We killed that team. I was talking every bit of trash on that team as much as I could. Bryant Bosworth, the most overrated player in the history of college football, what have you, all that. I was doing all that stuff. Oh, yeah. As you could tell, I talked trash then. And, hey, it's not because I'm in broadcasting now that I talk trash. I've been talking trash for over 40 years. It ain't just because of broadcasting. I was born to talk trash. I was born to play on them Rockstar Hurricane teams. So I loved Barkley last night. Man, just shut up and stop crying. Go out there and win games. People are expecting you to. I love that. All right. Let's transition into this. Look, the college football season is going to be a very, very, I think, competitive season this year because you know what the coolest thing is going to be? All the conferences are going to be playing. You're going to see the fans in the stands, and it is going to be, without a doubt, I think one of the most anticipated years when it comes to college football that we've had in a long time because we're coming out of this pandemic. I think you're going to see record-breaking ratings. I think you're going to see phenomenal teams because remember something also. What the pandemic did a year ago, it allowed some of these kids who were 5-year seniors and redshirt seniors to actually come back on a waiver because of the pandemic. So some of these teams that you may not know, are going to be bringing back a lot of experienced football teams and some teams around the country that you're not going to know. And some of these teams are going to jump up and surprise you. We saw a team out of the Big Ten last year. Indiana, they're bringing a lot of their guys back. Indiana hasn't really been relevant since the late 60s. And I think that was like their only Rose Bowl appearance was back in the late 60s. And I think it was against OJ's USC team. And last year they had a really good year, man. I mean, that football team looks like it's on its way to becoming at least a player in the Big Ten. I don't know if they're going to be a contender for the Big Ten championship, but I think they're going to be a player now because they're starting to get some talent into that organization and into that program. The Big Ten has, in my opinion, the second best programs in the country next to the Southeastern Conference. I think that the Pac-12 used to be one of the Tiffany conferences, but because of the time difference, I think because of the lack of what Larry Scott, the commissioner for that conference for numerous years, was not able to do, he was never able to really sell it to the public. And the fact that they always use Southern Cal as a bell cow for them to be able to sell that conference has been a problem now, because if USC's not good, everybody looks at the Pac-12 and does this. Well, I don't know if it's a very good conference, even though Washington and Oregon are two fine football programs. Oregon's one of the Tiffany programs now in the country because of the economic dollars that Phil Knight from Nike pumps into that program. There's no coincidence that Nike has now become a massive player in that program's success, both college basketball and college football-wise. That's the hub of Nike. And Oregon now is starting to benefit from that relationship with Nike. Let me tell you, man, when a program like that comes knocking on your door and you know that there's economic opportunities for you to be able to go and potentially make some money now because of your likeness, and because now this 12-team playoff is going to give players an opportunity, well, guess what, man? I mean, that's a place that you want to maybe put your name and get an opportunity to play. So make no mistake about it. All right, we're going to try to effort our friend Gerry Dinardo here and get his comments because, like I said, he works for the Big Ten Network. Gerry is a former head football coach, does a great job with that network. And make no mistake about it, last year was one of maybe the most turbulent years for that conference. You know, they initially were not going to play. Then they were going to come back into the fall and play. Then they were going to start it up. Then they were going to come back again. And there was so much influx in how they were able to really go out and really decide whether or not they were going to move forward. I think politically a lot of politics played into this. And I think without a doubt the politics played into the fact that they were so inconsistent last year. And there were a lot of people saying, should Ohio State even be in the conversation for a national championship last year? So it was a rough year for them. The amount of money that was lost in all of those programs was monumental too. So think about that for a minute, the amount of money. You know, I was talking to our friend Kevin Frazier from Entertainment Tonight, and he was told that a program like Michigan State lost like $70 million just off of their football program alone. And when you're talking that kind of money, and there's 14 Big Ten programs that are in that conference, man, you're talking about a couple $2 billion worth of economic loss. How are they going to recover as they move forward into 2021 season? Recruiting was affected. Television obviously was affected. The perception of the conference was obviously thought of on whether or not they had the right leadership at the helm. I mean, it was really – I had massive issues with how they waffled back and forth because of the politics. You have to remember something about the Big Ten. The Big Ten is in Democrat country. Majority of those programs are in Democrat states. And when I was talking about this a couple days ago, when you have politics involved with an institution, especially when the amount of money that's being generated by some of these programs like Michigan and Ohio State, and to some extent programs like Iowa, you're going to have a lot of influence from politicians on whether or not you should start up. Remember, they didn't even want to have students going into the schools. They wanted to do a lot of it Zoom conference, which meant this. A lot of the players couldn't even show up to campus. So this coming year, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen. And by the way, there's a lot of great storylines for this conference this year. Jim Harbaugh is a great one. Who would have ever really thought that John Harbaugh was going to be the guy who was going to maybe end up being the better Harbaugh head coach, right? Turns out that as of right now, as good as Jim was in San Francisco, Jim was awesome at San Francisco. I think he was 41-19-1 as a head football coach in the National Football League. And, look at John, what he's doing in Baltimore. John's turning out to be the better head football coach here. So, again, we're trying to effort our friend Gerry Dinardo here and get his comments here on what this conference will turn out to be. Okay. Something else that popped up last night too, and obviously the injury to Giannis. When you're talking about injuries, most people think it's because that you play and you play too much that you tire your body out. That's never been the case when it comes to injuries in sports. Activity is what stops and prevents injuries. The more active you are, the more you keep your body moving, the more ability you have on being able to, again, keep your body active and not get injured. LeBron James is suggesting that the injury to Giannis last night, who fell poorly, was because the NBA season, they were back-to-back on one another coming out of the bubble. It can't be further from the truth. Michael Jordan played 81 ball games a year, every single season. Michael Jordan got hurt one time because he fell wrong early in his career and he broke his ankle. Other than that, make no mistake about it, okay? You need to play as much as you possibly can. All right, we're going to take a brief time out here. We're going to try to run down our friend Gerry Dinardo from the Big Ten Network. You keep it here on the National Football Show. Wait a minute. We're going to maybe do a pause here on that, and we're working on Gerry Dinardo now to see if we could possibly end up getting him in. All right, let's just take a quick break here, and we'll try to get him on next here. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show. Dan Sileo here. We're trying to effort our friend Gerry Dinardo from the Big Ten Network. By the way, bottom of the hour, we'll also talk to our friend Rick Doc Walker on the Washington team and get his perspective if they can repeat as NFC East champions. We'll put it all together here for you. No worries here. It's live streaming, so you know where we are here. So it's all good. All right. You know, what's going to be really great, the National Football League has come out and said that all the teams are going to be able to have full houses this coming season. And I just can't wait. You know, the NFL kind of got away with it. College football did not get away with it. You know, I think without a doubt, college football needs to have fans in the stands. And they need to have the pageantry that's involved with college sports. But then you look at the NFL really, and I've said this to you before, the National Football League is a league that doesn't really get their income and their revenue when it comes to fans in the stands any longer. Now I'm not saying that they don't generate any kind of economic wealth when it comes to fans that show up to Jerry's World. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying to you is that 90% of their operating budget comes from television. So the NFL prospers because of the economic money that they generate through that TV package that they have with the networks. That's where their money comes from. So not having fans in the stands, it hurt the look of the league and the presentation of the league. And now that you're going to be able to get fans back in the stands, you know what I love the most about, you know, and I've said this to you before, one of the greatest things on the planet when it comes to, you know, football Sundays and the things that fans love to do, you know, the barbecues, the tailgating, you know, the ability to go to bars and watch all these great games and get a chance to get together with your buddies and get a chance to go to those games. There's nothing like it. Okay. You know, I've said this before. That's the stuff that really galvanizes communities. Anytime that you can go to a tailgating to me is one of the funnest things to do. And if you've ever had an opportunity to be involved with some of these tailgate parties, especially with some of these notable franchises. I mean, like when you tailgate at a New York Giants or a Pittsburgh Steeler or a Green Bay Packer or a Philadelphia Eagle or a Buccaneers, it's truly an experience. And these fans have built these great fan bases up because they all get together each and every single Sunday. I'm using Sundays. I know Thursdays and Mondays and sometimes Saturdays and all that. I get it. But having fans back in the stands is going to be such an enormous thing when it comes to this coming season. You know, it's also going to be a great sign, and it's going to be a great release. Okay? It's just going to be a great release for everybody to be able to go to these games again. And I can't wait. Let's get over to our friend Gerry Dinardo here, and we're going to talk a little Big Ten football here. Gerry, I appreciate you spending some time with us here, man. Thank you so much. Hey, it's, you know what? It's live TV, and it's like, you know, getting people together here now on this like technology. It's always crazy. So I appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much for coming aboard.
Dan, I have to tell you, I apologize for having trouble getting through. We're in a flash flood warning. We're trying to drive I'm driving from Breckenridge, Colorado to Columbia, Missouri, and we are in the mother of all storms. So I think that may have had something to do with trying to get through.
Well, if you need to start rowing away, I'll understand if you start doing that. So I get it, man. I appreciate you doing this. I before I brought you on, Gerry, I said last year was a really contentious year for the Big Ten because of the stoppage, the starting, the late start. You know, we all debated whether or not Ohio State should be involved in a conversation for the national championship. What are your expectations coming out of that pandemic? I would have to say, here, let me pollute the question a little bit here. Maybe they learned a lot about themselves, all these programs, as they move forward. How do you see it?
You know, I think all programs around the country probably learned a lot about themselves. You know, it was a really interesting year aside from COVID-19. You know, you take Indiana, for example. Did anybody project them to be the second best team in the East Division? Penn State having a losing record. Minnesota, you know, not living up to expectations. And, you know, Dan, I think all of that is even more relevant as we go forward. I don't believe particularly it's going to be a strong year in the Big Ten. I think Ohio State's going to be the best team. I think Wisconsin, Iowa. I think the East might still be a little bit down. So, you know, I've been on the Big Ten Network. I think we're going into our 14th or 15th year. This may be the most interesting season of Big Ten football. Not the best year of Big Ten football, but maybe the most interesting.
Let me ask you about Harbaugh in Michigan. You know what? And I say this with due respect. You were coaching in the Big Ten, I believe, when Bo was in the Big Ten at Michigan. And I'll ask you this. You know, I don't ever remember Bo Schembechler winning a national championship at Michigan. Now, look, he had a winning record versus Woody in the 10-year war. We all know, I think it was 5-4-1, whatever it was. And he beat Michigan, or Ohio State. That's the one thing that, no question, that Jim's not doing. But when you look at his win percentage compared to Bo's, are the expectations at Michigan just a little bit more loftier than the fan base than what they really think they are? Because, I mean, Gerry, that's not a national championship football program when you're talking about the elite teams every year, or am I wrong?
No. In fact, you bring up a really interesting point. Dan, there's a quote from Bo Schembechler. I have it in my notes, but like I said, I'm in a car here parked at a gas station. You know, he would always say, any coach that has a goal for a national championship in the Big Ten is a darn fool. The goal ought to be to go to the Rose Bowl. So culturally, down through the years, Michigan has never been a national championship or bust program. In fact, I'd suggest to you, Dan, that there's only one national championship or bust program in the Big Ten, and that's Ohio State. And so Jim, I think, knows that. Not that he doesn't want to win the national championship, but I don't think the fans have that expectation. In fact, I don't believe they've won a championship, a Big Ten championship, since 2004. I think right now they would have a huge celebration for an Eastern Division title. And so that's a long way away from what Bo is doing and a long way away from what Ohio State has expectations of their coach.
Coach, do you agree that, you know, when you look at what's going on at Indiana right now, that it's not just going to be a one-year deal. It's going to be more of what they've laid some foundation work there for that football program to actually have some continued success. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I would add to that, this is 10 years in the making, Dan. Kevin Wilson, who really started the program and then brought Tom Allen on as a defensive coordinator. So, and obviously I have history in Indiana. And when I went there, I said it was going to be 10 years. Not that I expected them to give me 10 years, but I was trying to tell them that this program needs 10 years to get on solid ground. And sure enough, between Kevin Wilson and now I think Tom Allen, you know, Dan, Bill Mallory is the winningest football coach in Indiana history. He has 69 wins, and only about 30 of those are Big Ten wins. I suggest to you that Tom Allen will be the most successful, winningest football coach in Indiana history. He's a perfect fit, and he's done a great job. But believe me, it's 10 years in the making.
I have one last question for you here. I had Joe Montana on my national radio show a couple months ago, and I brought the movie up, Rudy. He started laughing, and he just started laughing at me, and I'm like, what are you laughing at? He goes, you don't really believe the movie was really the movie, do you? And I go like this. I go, yeah, I believe the movie was the movie. And he goes, I didn't even know the guy was on the team. And I was going like this, and I went, you were an All-American. I think your brother was also an All-American at Notre Dame. Give me the skinny on this thing. Is it more Hollywood or is it reality?
You know, Dan, this is an incredible question. I have to tell you, because I get asked this question all the time, and it always starts with Joe Montana. So my experience was drastically different. Now, for a couple of reasons. Now, one, I was friends with Rudy. Okay, it was so aside from football, I knew him outside of football. I knew him before he was ever on the team. The second thing that separates Joe and my experience is I wasn't there when Rudy played in the game. So the first half of the movie about him waiting to hear from Holy Cross, from him being a total pain in the butt on the scout team, all that kind of goofy stuff. As I remember, he lived in the ACC, the Convocation Center, not in the stadium. So the first half of the movie, to me, was pretty accurate. Joe's experience was when he played in the game, and I wasn't there for that. So it's just funny that, you know, again, we both Joe and I both get the questions because we were there when Rudy was there, but our answers are drastically different. And I have to tell you, I believe both are true. When Joe says he didn't know he was on a team, I believe Joe. But I knew him before he was in the university. He was at Holy Cross when I knew him. So anyway, I hope that that's been my experience. But it's a funny story for sure.
Well, for sure it is. And you were there during some of the greatest winning times during Notre Dame's time there under Coach Parsegian. Gerry, thank you so much, and make sure you use your oars out there, all right?
Again, I apologize for the difficulty.
It's all good.
Together. I appreciate you having me, though, Dan. Thank you.
You got it. Gerry Dinardo there, played at Notre Dame, too, back in the day, and always asked that movie. Yeah, when I asked Joe Montana the question about Rudy, he went, who? All right, let me switch and go over to my friend Rick Doc Walker here. And I love Doc, man. You talk about a guy who's been around covering the Washington team and all of the history that goes with it. Played back in the day with the Washington Redskins, obviously. Now they've changed their name to the Washington team. And last year's NFC East champions, part of the broadcast team. He joins us now here on the National Football Show. How you doing, Doc?
I'm doing good, man. It's really good. It's been hot out here. Got a chance to get wet this afternoon. Been pulling weeds, man, for a week, and that's my thing, to go out and tear up weeds.
All right, well, let's see this now. Is Washington going to tear up the NFC East this coming season again? I mean, I'll tell you, Doc, I really loved what they did on defense. And, you know, through all the turmoil that was going on, maybe from the outside in the front office there, they put some pretty good, talented people on that defensive side of the football team. And I've said this to everybody. The two teams that got the best chance to win that division are the two teams that have the best defense. That's the Giants and Washington. How do you see this coming year, 2021?
Well, Dan, I think it's really important. I base everything, first of all, starts with the offensive line. And so there's going to be some maneuvering there. I think they've got some great prospects to fill in some holes, but you lose Morgan Moses, who's been a staple at the right tackle position. And now they drafted well. They've got people there. The Bears have been great. They've given us guys that end up starting. One thing I'll say about Ron Rivera's staff, they're a great teaching staff. You know, in the NFL, the biggest misnomer is that you got to get better when you get there. And oftentimes, a lot of staffs around the league are buddies of the head coach. That doesn't mean they're good at what they do. You can always tell the teams like Washington that close strong, guys got better, cast-offs from one team, become starters for yours. Draft picks come in, hit the ground running. Guy like Cameron Curl at the safety position. You get people that other people didn't have a fit for, and you coach them up. Just because you're drafted high means nothing in this league. You got to be able to be taught, retain your information, and then you got to stay out of trouble. And they've done a great job with that. Jack Del Rio on the defensive side, the offensive line. I'm really excited about the possibilities. But until I see it done against the Chargers, then it's just speculation. Because last time this team played, they played the eventual world champions, and they had no chance to win the game. So that shows you where you are, if you're realistic. Now, a lot of people around here say, oh, they did a great job. They got dump trucked, okay? And so that you look at that, it's your barometer. Now, how much better do you want to be? You got to get your defensive ends to get pressure on the quarterback. They had none. against Tom Brady. So that's a good barometer. I think they'll pick up from that. So we got to wait and see.
Doc, a question, because I got a lot of friends that are in Pittsburgh, Dwayne Haskins. And I've said this about Dwayne, and I've said this to people about my career. I got to the NFL. I was not a very mature guy. Being a professional is also part of the equation in your development as a professional athlete. So I always say this to people. Part of my failure was not me being a professional and understanding where I needed to be, following guys like Ed Too Tall Jones once I got to the Cowboys, and seeing guys with a routine and understanding. I've always said this about Dwayne. I thought he was a green apple on the tree that didn't get a chance to ripen when he was at Ohio State. Maybe needed another year. And him going to Pittsburgh is probably one of the better places that he could have went to, because he's going to be put on blast if he doesn't do the things that it takes to be a professional by Mike Tomlin. Am I right with the assessment on what I see with Dwayne Haskins?
Well, you're a pro. You nailed it. The biggest, again, what you do in college is great for college. 50 that's great. But you got to look at who you had around you. That's why I'm always leery when guys come out of powerhouse programs, Alabama, Clemson, Georgia. I really don't know how good they are until I see them, they're marginalized. Now they got to be with the rest of us. Because when you come to, it's like a gang fight. They all come, they're loaded, they got AKs. You got a butter knife, okay? Because they're packed. I don't know if you're good or not. So I got to see what you do when you get there. Dwayne was immature, okay? If you do your due diligence, you should have known that out of Ohio State. So I don't like a rookie. I don't like a quarterback that's young unless I've got some seasoned staff members or a guy on this team that can put him under his wing. That's what happened down in Miami. And that's why I like our guy, here, experience, but also no ego. NFL locker rooms, you got if I'm going to help a guy develop, I got to drop my ego. But yet everybody on my team, I want them to all want to be starters. I don't want anybody that wants to be a backup. So it's the level of competition, new staff. Well, Gruden and them, that wasn't their choice. So the mistake starts in the beginning. Now I'm trying to make up for something I don't believe in my heart. That's an organizational spoof. Well, they've cleaned that up. I think Dwayne will be fine. Got all the talent in the world. Now is he going to work for it? And down there with Tomlin and the structure of the Steelers, you got no other choice, brother. You got no other choice. Could be a great turnaround story. He wouldn't be the first. But it's the whole thing about this league. What you did in college, that's great for the old college. It means nothing when you come to this next level.
Absolutely. I think he'll be put on blast there with Coach Tomlin if he's not front and center doing the right things. You mentioned Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know what I love about it too, Doc, is that, every time in every place I've heard him stop at, teammates automatically gravitate to the guy because this guy becomes a great teammate. I've said this before about Tom Brady. I think Brady's greatest asset, he's maybe one of the greatest teammates of all time because people get galvanized around him. He wants to know everybody's personal relationships that he can foster with them. So if he has to be critical with them, it's not coming off as being, destructive, but constructive. And so that's what I'm hearing, what's going on in Washington. And I would even make this point as you guys look for that maybe apparent guy down the road. Maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick is the perfect quarterback for Washington at this time right now as you're going through that, because he's going to put stability at that position. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. And Heineke is the kind of guy, and Alan, you want guys that are pushing you. I don't want a guy on my team that's not being pushed. It's a genuine respect when I know you can play. I know you can help me make money. Well, this is a financial agreement. Every guy out there has got to be linked to say, hey, I'm going to help you build that deck. I know you want a pool. I'm going to help you get that pool. That's our relationship. I'm not going to let you get wasted on the road. I'm protecting you because we are partners. This is a partnership. I don't care who scores as long as we score, and that's what this guy represents. Now, but I want him to be pushed. Ron Rivera mentioned that it should all be a competition. For a team that hasn't won 7 games, it should be wide open. But they want to anoint people. We got all these, quote, players of the year. I don't know where they are. I haven't seen it, but maybe it'll come about. What you do on game day proves what you did. And then the team's got to get there. I've been 0-5 in this league with Joe Gibbs the first year. You can talk all you want. Nobody knew Joe other than insiders. But Joe's pedigree from Florida State to University of Southern California, he's been around winners. He's around the genius in Eric Coryell down in San Diego. And what I love about Joe is that he brought in and looked at us and said, oh, my goodness, I got F Troop. He just had all those stars out in San Diego. So he converted his concepts to fit our skill set. And as a result, the rest is history. That's coaching and development. So now I'm looking at Coach Turner as an offensive coordinator and say, now this is the time for him to adapt what he believes in. And his old man, Norv was a monster. Okay, love him to death. But that was Norv. Now Scott's got to do his thing. And he's got to get the people that can give him what he needs. And then if it doesn't work, got to swallow that pride and adjust to their skill sets. I think that's what we'll see this season.
Doc, I'm going to get Doug Williams on tomorrow. It's funny you should say he told me a story about Joe Gibbs. And tell me if you know this story. He's like, okay. There was, he had knocked around the USFL a little bit, and, Hugh Culverhouse, and I'll say this here, maybe you disagree. Hugh Culverhouse had racist tendencies, and when his wife died, he offered him a lesser contract. And I always told, Doug, I go, Doug, he offered you a lesser contract? He said, yeah, I couldn't be making more than Leroy Selman. And I'm like, but you're a quarterback. And he's like, yeah, I just couldn't go. That's why I went to the USFL. So, I knocked around there. Then I get to Washington. And, I was just on the team, and the Raiders wanted to make a trade for me.
That's
and
true.
He goes like this. He's like, yeah. And he goes, I'm all jacked up. Al Davis wanted me. And all of a sudden, Joe Gibbs just comes to him and says, you know what, Doug? I'm not going to trade you. And Doug's like, what? He was all like, had his heart set on being traded. He was going to be a Raider. He was going to get a chance to start. He goes, because you know what, man? One day this year, I don't know when it's going to be, we're going to need you. And we're going to need you to win a ball game. And we're going to need you maybe to win a couple ball games. And he goes on and wins a Super Bowl. Is that a true story?
Absolutely true. And what Joe told him was that, either it was a dream, it was something that Joe said it came to him, that Doug Williams was going to be the answer. And Doug has the best temperament of any athlete of prestige I've ever met. I love the guy.
Sure.
I love the guy. And he's not been dealt a fair deck, in my opinion.
Correct.
Based on what I think he really wanted to do and what he wanted to be. But
Correct.
It's not over. But I tell you what he is. He's a guy, man, you can win with. And I was covering the team at the time. I've never seen an entire team. This league. A lot of times it's divided by race, where guys go for happy hour. Seldom is it all together. I tell you what, this guy controlled the entire locker room as a backup. Everybody knew this is the guy. And it was just going to be a matter of time. And because he's got grace under pressure and he's not a complainer, this guy came in, and when he was injured in that game and Kyoki Kamal came to him, he said, don't touch me. And he got up on his own. He said he knew then. He could hear Eddie Robinson in his brain saying, boy, it ain't over. It ain't over. Go get it. And the rest is history. This guy's an asset, and he's an asset being in the building. And so whatever they have him doing, they're better off that he's in the building. And you'll see tomorrow when you get him on, man, this is a slice of life.
No, I'm dear friends with him, and I love him to death. And, just to expand on what you said, Doc, I'll never forget, he comes to me and he goes like this. He goes, they're not going to give me the USF job. I think he was up for a Kentucky job too. And I said to him, I go, because you're black? And he goes, how come I can only coach at Grambling? And I'm like, Doug, do you understand if Doug Williams calls me, an Italian kid, I'm going to pick the phone up and go, I want to play for that guy. He is such a marvelous man. I'm so happy to hear that you've had the same experiences with him. I've never seen a man in my life, Doc. Doc, I asked him the question when 5 seconds was ticking off the clock and you knew you were going to be the Super Bowl MVP. Did you think about all the crap that went on in Tampa? He goes, no. I thought about all the people that helped me get to where I was and all the people that the shoulders that I'm standing on now. And I'm like, man, I would have an axe to grind, not him.
Well, he's better than we are. I mean,
Yes.
Joe Gibbs went and scouted him. Joe Gibbs he was teaching high school history class, and Joe went, said, and that's the thing about Joe Gibbs. When you connect with coach, you know it's for the right reasons. And I've never seen a guy better with circles than Joe Jackson Gibbs. His concepts, because he adapts what he like to get done based on what he knows you can do. And he's not going to put you in a position to where you won't be favorable. And there have been a lot of great coaches like that. I mean, hell, John McKay was a great coach. And what he did, build a dynasty at Southern Cal, went down there. And I love those, the icicle, the uniforms. And when Doug there, I think it was the Eagle playoff game. I've never been – there it is.
Leroy Selman. See this one right here? Leroy Selman. Look at Leroy.
Hey,
signed it for me.
That's awesome. That Eagle playoff game, I was like a kid in the candy shop, man, pulling for Douglas. The guy he overcomes it. He gets it done. Tampa, the culture, it was probably – he should have been the first player taken in the draft. But just think about it. We're talking mid-70s.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get over that. And now if you look at our country and the obstacles we're still trying to get over, similar hurdles here in 2021. Slow but steady is the progress. And it takes character guys to withstand it. And, he's just simply, as Coach Thompson used to say, he's simply one of the best. And I just hope that he's not done with the football side of it, because I really believe he's got a burning desire to be involved in football, and I sure hope he gets that.
Two last questions for you, Doc.
Sure, take your time.
You mentioned Ron Rivera a couple of minutes ago. I love Riverboat Ron, and I knew him when he was in as a player. Obviously, I played in the league as well. We were in the NFC Central Division, and he was still playing. And then he became a coordinator with the Chargers when I was covering the Chargers, and I always thought he had a fabulous mind on being a defensive coordinator. What's the difference? And I'm friends with Jay Gruden too. And so, not to throw any shade on Jay, but what's the difference? What's the difference you think that Ron has brought to Washington? That change, because you saw it drastically on the field. It looked like there was more accountability. Am I wrong when I say that last year?
No, it was. And Jay's a brilliant mind. I mean, I covered Jay in arena football, and now that he played, player, coach, won. He understands the game. He communicates extremely well, with his players. He needed Iron Man over him. See, when you get a guy like Jay, you got to have an SOB that's over. You know what I mean? He needs that. He's got to have a guy nobody likes that's over him, because everybody's going to love him. He's going to be the right guy for the room, and he understands how to deal with it. And I think I always thought Jay on the collegiate level would be unstoppable. I mean, I think the guy has a great talent, but you need an organization to win. You really do. And so they're doing a blowout sale here now, trying to change it. And what Ron was able to do in the midst of battling cancer, because he was given the authority. See, I don't care what your title is. If you don't have the power to do things, you're not going to win. And in this league, as you well know, it masks power. A lot of guys have position to have no power. And guys know. See, they make a hell of a lot more money than we ever got close to. See, I don't know this league of playing with millionaires. If a guy made $300,000, I think was the most anybody played, and we won championships. Okay, that's the worst guy in the league now gets $400,000. Yeah. So you got to be really now Belichickian in terms of how you approach these guys, because they have means, and you got to make them do exactly what you want them to do until they figure it out that it's their team, and then take pride in representing that. And if you let them go on their own, you got no chance. There's just too many things to do now when you have wherewithal, money, and these guys don't get it. Developing a team, as you well know, is the single hardest thing going. You can have great players, but to have a great team, you got to have guys that are selfless, and they got to love each other. I mean, that is a bond, as you well know. You can't explain it to people, but it's got to be something that where I'm next to Joe Jacoby, I'm next to George Stark. We got a guy who takes the outside. I got to be there for him. If he's expecting me to be there, I got to be there or die trying. And how do you get that in today's culture? and then social media. We didn't have social media. Can you imagine if we had social media?
The Hogs?
I can't imagine what it would have been all the way across the board. So there's a lot going on now. And so they got psychologists now. There's only 4 to 32 teams that have them. They all ought to have them. As big, large people, we hurt. We have issues. And we mask them because everybody's trying to be El Macho. But you got to be able to connect. And that's why, to me, the most important thing Joe Gibbs told us in 1980 was that he asked Jack King Cook for 12 guys. He got all 12. That's the staff. And you got to be on one accord, man. And you got to be teachers. People have to get better. And this whole version of backups, I've never bought into that. We're 53 strong or we're in trouble because you can't control injuries. And next guy up's got to be able to step in and get it going, or we'll never win.
Absolutely. Doc, my coach was Jimmy Johnson, and both college and pros. And I'll never forget, man, Jimmy goes like this: hey, I'm going to treat everybody different, but I'll tell you what, I'll treat you all like men. And we're going to be honest with one another in the room here. This is what you have to do to be on this team. This is what you have to do to be great. And, a lot of people don't like to be put on blast like that. We're talking about Mike Tomlin and Joe Gibbs.
Yeah.
I always thought the most successful coaches, Doc, were the ones that were the most honest with you. And the ones that BS'd you were the ones that were out of the league, just like players. You know what I mean? I mean, players and coaches kind of have the same kind of dynamic that, hey, if you're BSing yourself on not showing up the facility and putting the extra work in, you're never going to last in that league. I learned that when I was around Ed Jones, Doc. I didn't, like I told you earlier, I didn't know how to be a pro early when I was drafted by the Bucks. I get to the Cowboys, and there's Ed Too Tall Jones, who you played against, I'm sure. And I'm sitting there going like this.
Too much.
Yeah, too much, too tall. And I'm sitting there watching Ed show up at Thousand Oaks, and he had a routine, showed up at the same exact time, got his ankles taped, worked out, showed up to films, got his meal, went to bed, did everything. And I asked him, he goes, I've been doing that routine for 17 years. And I said, every day. He goes, every day. And every day it's given me an opportunity to show up the next day into an NFL locker room. And, you're just told that because of Coach Landry and coaches like Coach Gibbs and Landry. So I'd love to hear that Riverboat Ron is bringing that to Washington. Last question for you, Chase Young. How great is the kid? I see him from afar. I saw him at Ohio State. Just your thoughts of what you've seen with him in the first year. He looked like he was dynamic.
He had a groin injury that kind of set him back from getting. I think he would have been a double ditch sack guy, but he didn't get there because of the injury. Plays hard. First thing I want out of my quote, potential star, because to me it's potential. Till you do it, it's potential.
Correct.
Works hard. He's in condition. A lot of guys in this league aren't in shape. He's in condition. He gets it. Now he just got to do it. And now he's a captain to them. He went through this OTAs. This thing, the league is crazy. Either it's mandatory or it's not. But when you got 2 guys that don't show up and one guy lives in town, it raised my eyebrow. Dude, just show up. You ain't got to do nothing. Right. But so I want to know now, we're going to see. The last time we saw him, it was against Tampa Bay, and they didn't double him. So all this great, well, you got to show it. Okay, the potential is there. But who's not talented? Who doesn't have potential? Sweat, the other guy, might have the highest upside of any guy I've ever seen. This guy could be a freak of all freaks, but we got to see it. Now he's got a COVID issue. He doesn't believe in the vaccine, which I respect. But how are they going to deal with that? You going to quarantine him? What's going to happen? So these are things that you and I both know are counter to teamwork. For us to get where we got to go, we got to all be pulling the oar at the same time in the same motion. And right now they got guys going a little bit different directions. So I'm going to wait and see. All I focus on the Chargers. I don't care what they do. If it doesn't help them beat the Chargers, it's a waste of time. So, and they got to go to camp. We got to figure out who's going to be where. And I'm a guy that believes in who's backing up those 2 guys. They got a kid out of Penn State. They got another kid out of Oklahoma State. See, I love guys from the 5th, 7th round. I want somebody to come in hungry. The last thing I want to hear about a guy just got $2 million. I don't care about that. I'm looking for the guy that has the Uber to camp. or is it Uber to come in? See, because that's how you win. And you know it, and I know I need junkyard dogs. I don't need guys to Rose Bowl. That's college. Don't mean squat. I want to know some guys that are hungry. And I haven't seen enough of that. As I see that, it'll pick up. But the kid out of Kentucky at linebacker, love him. Because I love anybody that had to go against LSU, Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. Those are guys I want. I want to see guys who had to deal with that, and he dealt with that. See, because I could see him. So if the guy stays healthy and the linebacker position picks up and we get those big hogs up front to get more pressure and to stop the run, we got gutted against Tampa, right down the middle. So I don't want to hear about how great they are. I want to see how great they are against the Chargers.
Doc, you like people in that locker room that have built equity up, don't you? You
Yes.
don't like to hear, you don't want to hear anybody about accolades and press clippings and any of that stuff.
Don't mean,
You have
what
to
does it
build-
mean?
You have to build equity up in your locker room first before you can start to say you want to do something maybe off script. You have to have equity in the locker room, correct?
Listen, guy like Warren Sapp, love Warren. Hey, Warren, what you need? When you going to be? I don't worry about him because I know when that ball snapped, I don't have to worry about him. I don't care what he did the night before. I don't care where he was at. Those are rare birds, man. Everybody else, rank and file, check in, do your thing, and make sure you and the strength and conditioning coach are like this. Because that's where it's all win and loss, man. You build championships, as you well know, in the offseason. You build them like right now. Somebody's in Cabo. Somebody's in the weight room. Somebody – this is what this league's about. Now they got a lot of this. So we're going to find out how bad do you want it, Dan? And that's what I'm waiting to see with this group. I mentioned Cameron Curl by name. That's the kind of guy I'm looking for. And because he's a junkyard dog. They got a receiver, McLaurin out of Ohio State. You wouldn't even know he's in the room. Kid came, he said, hey, play special teams. He wants to do it all. Might be one of the best wideouts in the league. You never hear a peep out of him. Shows up, plays hurt, does it. He's a component to a championship. Now they just got to get about a dozen of those guys. And until I see it, I don't believe it.
Tell you what, Doc, I've enjoyed. I'm sorry I kept you on this long. I love talking with you. I hope we can do this again because I just love your passion and I love the fact you're right. I don't care what you did in college, where you came from, man. It's like what you do once you get into that building. And I tell everybody, and Doc, I come from a place of being the 56th player taken and taking that for granted, and seeing another guy that was a later draft choice go on and do more. And everyone asks me, why did you fail? And I always do this because I wasn't professional enough, and that's on me. Nobody else. It's on me. I still had a 7-year career, but still, I'm like this. That's on me, my failures, because you're only accountable for yourself. And I love talking to you. Doc, we got to do it again, man. Hope we can.
will, brother, but you're winning, though. See, you're still in the game.
Yes.
You know how many guys are waiting on a check to come from something they did 20 years ago?
Right.
Man, that's a dead mindset. It's about now, man. You got to be hungry. They don't owe us anything. We went through it. It was a good ride. I still got to eat. So that's my deal, man. That don't feed me. I got to eat. So I'm hungry. I'm hungry. And that's the guys I look for. And I can look at it. I can't tell you how it's going to be. I have to see practice. I got to see how they train. The strength and conditioning guys. I got to talk to trainers. Who's coming in and getting their work? Who's bypassing it? And when I hear guys talking about the club, I just drop my head. Son, do you realize how much you can club as a champion? When you walk in there with hardware, you all got no hardware. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same. I love the attitude of the youth. I love the barbaric approach to the offseason of the youth. I pull for them to come back.
Thank you.
Because it's a Neanderthal mindset. And all the guys I got to play with, the Santana Moss, the Portis, these guys, I love them because they're all gamers. They're gamers.
Sean Taylor.
Oh, man, that was a freak of nature. He ran. I saw him run to practice, jog, ride bikes to practice. I never seen nothing like it. I called him the tarantula. I loved covering this team with this guy because he had it. He got it. Seldom do we see greatness on that level. You play with a lot of great guys, and I know a lot of them. Thrill Hill, Dorsett, my boy Ron
I
Springs,
played with Jerome Brown. I played with Jerome
JB?
Brown. Yeah.
Oh. I loved him. I mean, I look at guys, I go play away. People say, what do you want to see when you see the guy? I want to see play away. When the ball goes on the other side, what do you do? Yeah, see, pursuit. LT is the best I ever came in contact with. Everybody, how was he like? You couldn't get him play away. Yeah, coming on. Yeah, he was the greatest. But I'm going to tell you what, the motor this guy played with is unconscionable. And he had the money. He had all that. But he played like a free agent. He played like a guy trying to make the team. That's the kind of guy that I'm looking for. And a staff has to generate that. This staff has the potential to do it. Now we just got to wait and see.
Doc, I appreciate it, man. This has been a lot of fun, man. I have had you on years and years ago, but my God almighty, man, I see why you were a radio legend there in D.C. Man, you're just absolutely bringing it, and I really appreciate it. I want to do it again. Thank you, Doc. I appreciate it. Thank you. Brother. You got it, my brother. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, give Dougie my best. And ask Doug, say, Doug, Doc had a couple of stories about you. Watch it. He going to get nervous. Just hit him with that, yeah.
I definitely will. Doc, thank you so much, my friend. You got it. Rick Doc Walker, man, covering the Washington team. Man, I love those stories. You hear the passion that he has, too. It's not about what you did in college. It's about the ability for you to be able to go out and be a success and transform yourself into being a professional football player. You know, I say this to people. It's funny, you know, when I get asked, Dan, how come your NFL career wasn't a long career? And I tell people I did play 7 years of professional football. I played in numerous leagues, the Canadian League, the World Football League, the Arena League, the NFL. And, you know, I always tell folks, it took me time to mature as a professional. And that's not the easiest thing in the world for many athletes when they come out of college. You see, you know, you've been catered to, you've been pampered, you've been given, you know, a clean path in many aspects to reach your potential. That's what the great programs and the great coaches do. They try to clean out all the things that they possibly can to give you that yellow brick road for you to be a success. But then when you get to the NFL or you get to professional ranks, and then you got to start paying your own bills. You've got to show up on time. You've got to understand what it's about to be a pro. And that's easier said than done. It's not as easy as you possibly think it is when it comes to that. And that's what Doc, and I love to hear him talk like that because, you know, Doc's talking from experience on seeing some of these big time guys come in to a program and to an NFL team, and they're not mentally ready. They're living off their accolades on what they did in college. And that doesn't necessarily translate sometimes into what Tim Tebow's going through that. You know, Tebow was an absolute massive success at Florida. And he had spotty success when he was quarterbacking the Denver Broncos. He did beat the Steelers in the playoffs, which was an accomplishment. Not taking that away from him. That's part of his resume. I never take anything away from one's resume. And he had that opportunity. So Doc's right. I like what I'm also hearing, too, that Riverboat Ron is going to make that team have an opportunity at really finding themselves and seeing if they can repeat as NFC East champs. All right, let's switch gears here. This is one of my favorite people of all time. And I've talked to Rock at numerous Super Bowls, and his story, you know, I got to tell you, as we bring in Rocky Bleier here, I want to give you guys a resume. And this was years and years ago, I had the fortune of interviewing Kobe Bryant. And I go to Kobe. Kobe, what's more important to you, your 5 NBA championships or your Oscar? And he goes, well, you know, Dan, it was for me being something outside of my sport and me evolving into being more than just a basketball player. And with Rocky Bleier, how about this? Correct me if I'm wrong, Rock. A Bronze Star?
Yes.
A Purple Heart?
Yes.
And 4 Super Bowls?
Yes. Very good.
I don't know of anybody that's more acclaimed and more and more of an achievement than those. I mean, do you ever look back at that and just say, I mean, and the journey you were on, Rocky, I mean, just talk about that from where you were in Vietnam and all of that. You look back on that, I mean, a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, 4 Super Bowl rings. I mean, the journey must be incredible for you.
Well, first of all, Dan, thanks. It's great to be on your show.
Great to see you, man.
Again, good to see you again as well. When we talk about journeys in one's life, and you get to a point where you get a chance to reflect back on what took place in your life, and I think that at the moment you go through the process, and whatever you may face, or indecisions, or choices, and wherever your life takes you, it doesn't really have an effect until you look back on it later. At that moment in time, you're just trying to get through whatever the situation was. And in this case, and we got to go back, and you go back into the 60s, and you got to go back to the Vietnam War, and you got to go back to what was taking place within our community and our society. And and there was student movements that were taking place because of Vietnam. There was a civil rights movement that was taking place, and it seems to have continued, throughout this whole period of time. But for us who were living in and involved in that time, it was a big deal that was going on. So the Vietnam veteran at that time, or the Vietnam War, was not highly looked upon, and so and our position of being there, and unfortunately the soldier was identified with the conflict, and so guys went, and coming out of high school, or dropping out of college, and or after college, was either a choice. You go through ROTC, you go to OCS, or you go enlisted, or you get into a reserve unit if possible, or National Guard if possible, just to fulfill your obligation to this country. Well, in my case, that was all around, as well was the NFL, and the NFL drafted. And so I got a chance to get drafted in the NFL by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so, so I was focusing on that part of my life, of trying to make the team and be, basically just trying to make the team. Because who knew I was not a highly touted draft choice, and would have been a free agent in this time. I was 16th round draft choice out of 17. So at least I wasn't the last guy picked. Anyway, but the Vietnam War was going on, and so I specifically kind of fell through the cracks, and I got my draft notification. There were some other football players in that same realm that got drafted as well. A good friend of mine, Tommy Shane, who I played with at Notre Dame, was a 2nd round draft choice for the Cleveland Browns, and he got drafted. There was another player who played for the University of Minnesota. We ended up in basic training together. So our lives kind of parallel one another. So the whole mindset was then, okay, boom, you're drafted, and now you go into the war. And so you kind of bring the same mentality that you had, focused on what needs to be done. Training camp is a day-by-day process, and you just try to get through. Hopefully you can make the team, you get the team, hopefully you have a good season, or get a chance to play, whatever that might be. So you go through basic training, advanced training. I'm, a private, and I'm in the Army. And so I'm just a foot soldier over in Vietnam. So you try to get through whatever that process is, and day by day, and hopefully you get out of there alive of one nature. And so that was kind of, that was kind of my focus at that time. And then, wanting to come back. And so, yes, I mean, in that period of time, we had a firefight, and I got wounded twice, and the prognosis was I wouldn't be able to come back and play. And not that I lost any limbs, but I got hit with a grenade that blew up through my lower extremities. And so I had some nerve damage and some ligament damage to my foot. And so from a doctor's perspective, that was good enough to say, okay, I don't think you'll be able to play football again. So, but you take it at one day at a time. And I think that, for me, and not any different than any other football player, is that you kind of learn things along the way or from your experience. I don't care who we are, no matter what it is that you play out in the neighborhood, you play in pickup games, you're going to get hurt. You're going to fall down. You're going to have you stub your toe. You might come up with a broken finger or something of that nature. And you learn a process, which is you get hurt. It hurts. You go to the doctor. Okay, bandage you up, go through rehab. But as a kid, you fall down, scrape your knee, you twist your ankle, and you go, oh man, what's going to happen? Then you're back in the field again, in the backyard. So anyway, so it's a mindset. So it's really a mindset of being able to go through the process and hopefully get a chance or an opportunity. And that's something that you can't control. You can't control outside forces that may determine your life. The only thing that hopefully you could control is what you do with your life to be able to get to a point where hopefully you don't have to look back and say, I wish I would have or could have or tried or did more stuff to be able to make the team. And so I along the way, I get a couple breaks. The Steelers put me on injured reserve, and they put me on the taxi squad. So they bought me a couple of years. And in a couple of years, you get bigger, stronger, but you got to work out and do the things that are necessary. So you come back and you finally, and I got a chance to make the team on special teams. And then, one thing leads to another thing. And a couple of years later, somebody gets hurt and you get a chance to play. And then all of a sudden you become part of a backfield that wins the division, and you go to the playoffs, and you're part of that, and you go to the first Super Bowl, and then you play the rest of your time. And who knew that you're very excited about playing in the Super Bowl? Who knew there was going to be 2 or 3 or 4 thereafter? And so it was kind of a a unique time as compared to today, because I think there were 24, 25 guys that have 4 Super Bowl rings. And so you look at that core of people that wouldn't happen today. It wouldn't exist today because of free agency. But that got you through. And that's what really accounts for the fact of being able to win those games.
Rock, one thing that I'll say, your journey, having your foot almost blown off, the Roonies keeping you on the team, they must have seen something in you that they thought that you could be a factor for them. Because again, the thing that I love the most about the Roonies, here's a football program and here's a football team, Rock, that they've had 3 head football coaches since 1969. There's been more popes and presidents in the United States than head coaches in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Do you think that was the determining factor? That, again, they have patience in that organization. And by the way, Rocky, they still have patience in that organization with many of their players. You don't see big name free agents, and you never really ever have. Jerome Bettis comes to mind, but not. It's a handful of them. Do you think that's the one thing about the Roonies that really brings it to the front, is that their patience and their love for the guys that they bring into that organization, coach and player wise?
I think very much so. From an ownership point of view, and I'm going to have to go back to Dan Rooney, who passed away, the son of Art, who then took over as president. And Dan brought in a management style, and he brought in, Pittsburgh style. His dad was a great guy and so on, but he would hire friends as coaches, and he would, and the game haven't evolved. But Dan helped evolve the game in the latter part of the 50s and through the 60s and the 70s. And so if you're going to spend time, hiring a coach, and you put the time and effort to vet him out, to be the person, and you're going to make that choice, there's certain aspects. Part of what? Part of, how do you treat your players? What are your belief systems? How do you handle other people outside circumstances? Because that all is a reflection on the team, but it's also a reflection on the Roonies. So they're that kind of people, and they're not going to get rid of a coach because they lost 5-6 games or at a losing season, or whatever it is. They're going to give them the time and then the personnel to be able to do it. And the personnel comes through the draft, the working together in coming up with leadership and a belief system, and kind of being what the Steelers are all about. So that, it becomes very important, and it's a big reflection on the Roonies and how they approach things, because you don't see them involved. You don't see them, trying to be a head coach or making decisions. They're behind the scenes. They have some input, obviously, but they take care of owner business, and so the coaching staff takes care of the players. And so they've never had a general manager until recently. And that was just to take off because the business has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. But it's not, but even that is that you don't have a general manager who's taken the lead and establishing the philosophy. No, it's, everybody's got their own role, and you very, very seldom hear from management up. It's usually the head coach that is out there, and it's always been that way of leading and directing the efforts of the team.
I just love that mentality there. And I've said this before, Rocky, about what you guys accomplished. It was during the golden age of the NFL too, 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. And you have to remember, this was in the middle of the Dolphin dynasty. The Raiders were sensational. I mean, the Cowboys were great. There were so many great football programs because of what you mentioned. 24, 25 players on that Steeler team owned 4 Super Bowls. And I've talked to Bill Walsh when he was alive years ago. There's only like 6 49ers. Right. That have like 4 rings that were involved in that dynasty when they won all those Super Bowls, and Montana being one of those guys. But I mean, that just shows you. Do you agree? I mean, I love what Brady has done with the Patriots, salary cap. I get all of that, but that dynasty that you have, you must take great pride in the fact that that's the greatest dynasty in pro football history on what you guys accomplished.
And just to be a part of that, and I say this in all honesty, and I think that you would get that from the majority of guys, is that you were a part of a team who had some great players. I mean, I think we got 10 Hall of Famers. Now there's 5 Hall of Famers from that class of '74, which was a monumental class and impact. But who all kind of play together. I get to be on your show, not because I'm Rocky Bleier. I get to be on your show because of, 50 other guys that put together that period of time, and those 24 guys that got 4 Super Bowl rings, and, and leadership, and like Joe Green and Lambert and Jack Ham and Mike Webster, and Swan and Stallworth. I mean, just to name those guys that got you the big plays, and you were just part of it. And it was a team that, worked together. We had our ups and downs, and like everything else, and we had our arguments, but we had pure leadership. And I think that becomes very important. I'm not involved in the game today, nor do I have the opportunity to sit in the locker room. So the mentality of the young players today, I really don't have a grasp of or how they operate. But I can tell you this, that those teams that had been successful in the past really were led by peer pressure, not necessarily by dominant coaches and or by ownership, but by peer pressure. I mean, a coach can only say so much, and then you get sick and tired and you tune him out after a period of time. But when you get your fellow ball player riding up your butt, then you take notice. And
especially when he's Joe Green.
That's right. So between Joe Green and Lambert, we go, oh, okay, fine. You walk the straight and narrow pretty well.
Was it difficult to play for Coach No? And I don't think he gets the respect that you mentioned. He's involved in the draft along with the Rooney family and the front office on picking players and looking and evaluating Jack Lambert, looking at players like yourself that could help the team. By the way, Rocky would end up going on and having 1,000-yard rushing season. One of the very few times they had dual running backs gain 1,000 yards on the same backfield. I think you went to a Pro Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, as well. I would say this to you too, Rock. I mean, I look at Chuck and, I used to talk to him when he lived in Virginia when he was alive, and his wife did all of his booking for him, and it was really great. And Chuck, I really had a great relationship, and I adored talking with him.
Right.
And there were some guys that just didn't really enjoy. It seemed that him and Bradshaw had a horrible relationship while they played, but it looks like now Terry has more of an appreciation for him today than he did maybe when he played back then. Is that fair?
No, that's fair. I thought probably one of the best summation of Chuck was I asked Terry Hanratty, who I played with at Notre Dame, was the second round choice coming out of Notre Dame as a quarterback for the Steelers. He and Bradshaw were early competitors during that period of time, and so his locker was right next to mine. And so anyway. So one day I asked him, how would you describe Chuck? I mean, how would you describe Chuck? And so he probably gave me the best overall. He said, Chuck was not a yeller, was not a screamer. He was not a player's coach. He said he was very even-tempered, most of the time, very even-tempered, but he just made you feel uncomfortable. You just didn't know where you were with Chuck, and his biggest thing, and Chuck's big for him, this game was very easy. Listen, guys, we got rules. Why do we have rules? Because we're supposed to have rules, all right? Meaning that we have 11 o'clock curfew, like during training camp. And so even during the week at home, we got 11 o'clock curfew, which means that I don't care if you stay up to 1 or 2 o'clock. I just don't want you on the streets, and getting yourself into trouble, because we have practice the next day. And we got a curfew only because you need the rest, because we have a job to do. That's your responsibility. And there are, the league's got rules about certain things, and we just want you to, I don't want your money. I don't want to fine you. Just do what you're supposed to do and what your responsibility is. And that is, we got a season, we got responsibilities, and we'll just follow whatever the rules might be. And that's all I ask you to do. Be here on time. I don't want to fine you for being late. I just want you to live up to your responsibility as a player and as an adult in what needs to be done. So
show up on time and play like hell. I love that stuff. That's basically Chuck Noll. Hey, so in closing here, for you now, all of it, what I loved so much about your journey, Rocky, is that, the military journey, there was a chance that would never end up going on and continuing because of your injury and because the grenade in Vietnam. Then you make the team. Then you become part of the greatest dynasty in NFL history. Now you like to evolve. You're a public speaker. Now stand up too. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing too?
No, I'm not a stand up. No, so but I do have what? No, I do have a one-man show. I do have a one-man show that theatrical release on the story that takes place on a journey, and I invite the people who come as my guests as we travel through 3 bars and we go on this journey and so on. So it's I enjoy performing it. So
I love it. I love that you evolve yourself each and every single time that we get an opportunity to catch up. I really appreciate it. Rocky, thank you so much for coming aboard. It's always a privilege to have you on the program. Thank you so much, Rocky.
Anytime. Thank you. Thanks, Ian.
You got it. The legendary Rocky Bleier. So a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, 4 Super Bowl championships. Oh, and I forgot, a national championship at Notre Dame. We'll take a brief time out. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show. Dan Sileo. Back to back to back, right? That's how it's going to be sometimes. You never know who's going to show up to the National Football Show. Yesterday we had George Foreman on. I mean, I had really a fun time. And, you know, there's certain guys that go on these tremendous journeys in their life. That's what I look for. You know, it's not just to me about playing football. It's more about who you are and how you got there. You know, You get from the mainstream media, hey, man, so what do you think of the Dallas Cowboys this year? Or what do you think of the Steelers? How many times do you hear that question asked by all the muscleheads that are on radio? You hear that all the time. So what do you make of the draft? Lame. But because you don't really have to do any work when you're asking those questions. Hey, asking fans, what do you think of the Eagles draft in Philadelphia? You really think you have to do a lot of work to put a show on in Philadelphia? You don't. Philly fans are going to put the show on for you. That's why hosts are lazy in that market. You don't really have to work hard. What do you make of Carson Wentz? It's like asking, do you love the nighttime and the morning time? Which one do you like the most? You don't have to work as hard. So when you form a topic or you have somebody on, make them say something that you've not heard before. Okay? I want to know why that guy got to where he was and maybe where he is in his life and why he didn't get to where he needed to get. When people look at guys like Donovan McNabb, people will say this: you think McNabb's a Hall of Fame quarterback? I always answer that question with Hall of Fame talent, but he had gaps in his play where he was in the category of really good. Really good player. But to say Hall of Famer, not in your life. It's not a Hall of Fame football player. Too many gaps in leadership. Was he arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the Eagles? Absolutely. Absolutely. So was Jaworski. Jaworski got to a Super Bowl too, didn't he? Same as McNabb. Yeah, but McNabb threw for more yards. Different era. Can't do that. If I had to win a football game, I'd rather have Jaworski than McNabb. Just my personal preference. Maybe it's an age gap thing, but I'd rather have Ron because I can count on Ron. Okay? Not so sure I could count on that dude. And I look at people's character when it comes to leadership at that position, really in any position when you're talking about professional sports. I like his journey and how he got to who he was. I mean, this guy played against Lawrence Taylor, got his ass beat every day, and still put the Eagles in position all the time to win the NFC East and to get to a Super Bowl. Great coaching in Dick Vermeil. I look at guys like Phil Simms, who have been on this program as well. I love Phil. Phil is a rock-steady football player that played and was asked to do what the offense needed him to do to win ball games. Could Phil have thrown for 300 yards and been selfish? Sure. But he wasn't on a football team that needed to do that. He was on those legendary New York Giant teams that had Lawrence Taylor and Carl Banks and Harry Carson. Do you really think you need to have a 30-point football game? No, you could probably win a game 3-0 on that defensive team. Run the ball, play like hell on defense. Don't get me in any trouble on offense and go win some ball games. That's what the Giants did. You know what's crazy? The Giant team during that era, the Giants were during the era of the 49ers and the Redskins and all those great football teams. And still they won 2 championships. You couldn't name me a wide receiver worth his weight in gold that were on those Phil Simms teams, and they won 2 Super Bowls. Can you name me 2 wide receivers? Who? Phil McConkey and the tight end Mark Bavaro? Bavaro probably. But you look at Mark Bavaro's numbers, you wouldn't go, he's a Hall of Fame statistical dude, even though the position was completely different back then, where you relied more on the running. And you got to remember, the Giants were one of the top running attacks back in the day. Again, what Rocky said just a couple minutes ago, you know, you're asked to do something inside of a team concept. That's what wins ball games. Not putting up freaky, fantasy football numbers so that you can move the needle and people go, that guy is really a great player. And then you turn around and you look at Matthew Stafford's 1-loss record and you do this. Yeah, but would you want that guy on your football team to win a game? Matthew Stafford now has an opportunity to change the complete narrative about his entire NFL career. And get this, it's not going to be because of passing numbers. We're going to gauge that player on wins. Same thing with Carson Wentz in Indy. Here's the narrative on Carson Wentz going to Indy. People in Philadelphia clearly have a different perception of him now, right? For whatever reason, they think that Carson Wentz had a problem with Jalen Hurts being drafted. And what I would always tell people, of course you're going to draft a quarterback in the high rounds. You know why? You need a safety belt. The guy can't be counted on because of injuries. Why do you think they drafted a quarterback in Trey Lance in San Francisco? You think it's because they think Jimmy Garoppolo's not a good quarterback in San Francisco? No, it's because Garoppolo can't stay healthy. Has nothing to do with ability. It's availability. That's the problem with Wentz. It's availability. And Wentz has a little bit too much of a Phillip Rivers mentality. Thinks he has to do it all by himself. That's what's got to be broken down. That's what Frank Reich's job is right now. It's to break that ego down a little bit. Carson, you don't have to do all that to win a ball game. You could throw for 156 yards in a game and win. That's all. Win the game. Nobody cares about winning the statistical battle. Win the game. Whatever that looks like. That's another beauty on Brady. Win the game. Don't turn the ball over. No idiotic pre-snap penalties. That comes with being prepared mentally, along with physically. The great teams, when you watch them, they're chameleons every single weekend. What makes the Patriots, and I'll say under Brady and Belichick, what made them special and different than every other team in the league? You know what made them that way? You were like this. They could have a guy who gains 200 yards rushing one week, have that guy not activated the next week because of matchups and groupings that don't collide with the opponent. Belichick would sit a kid. You could have an entirely unbelievable performance in your history of your career. Bill will sit you the next week if he doesn't think you're going to be put into a grouping or into a group set that's going to be conducive to them going against their opponent. If he doesn't think you're going to help, you're going to be deactivated, and they're going to put somebody else in that position at another position that they're going to need strength at to win against that particular opponent coming up. Do you know how great of a coaching mentality that is? How many times do you see coaches do this? And this is what I think Doug Peterson and the Eagles fell into, but this is not uncommon to a lot of teams. They have a game plan, no matter what it is. Every week, it's the same game plan. Unfortunately, this game plan doesn't work every week. You've got to scout your opponents. What's his strengths and weaknesses? What do they do that's better than us that we have to combat against? It's not about jamming your program down someone's throat. Why would you run into a wall when you know the wall's not going to move? Why wouldn't you try to go around the wall to win a ball game? There's no pride in smashing your head into a wall if it's going to result in losing. You know how many coaches have that stupid mentality? I've played on teams. Well, we're going to do this. This is what we do. This is who we are because we have skill set guys. Belichick never built his football team. And really the great football teams, they're built, you know what they're built with? Versatility. You know, we were talking about Kevin Green yesterday. You know what made Kevin Green and guys like Carl Mecklenburg so difficult to defend? They could put their hand down in the dirt and they could stand up and cover tight ends. Same thing with Mike Vrabel back in the day. Same thing with Willie McGinnis. You didn't know what to do and how to defend those guys because those guys were so versatile. Teddy Bruschi was also another part of that Patriots roster that did those things. That's what makes those teams special. So it's when you're talking about, you know, quarterbacks and guys that play within a system like Rocky Bleier was talking about. Those are your great players. Look at Brady, what he's done. What won the Super Bowl for the Buccaneers last year? And this goes into the line what Rocky was talking about, how an environment that you build is a team environment, and you do whatever it takes to win that particular Sunday. How did the Patriots win those games? They won versatility. How did the Bucs win the Super Bowl this last year? You know how they did it? Defense, ran the ball. Brady not turned the ball over in the postseason. That's what the formula was. And it resulted in Brady's 7th championship. He's got the secret potion. He's got it figured out. He's mapped this thing out. He knows. He gets it. Okay? He understands it. Okay, let me go on here. I want to show you something too. You know, yesterday, and if you can go to my Twitter page, I talked about the teams that I really like going into the 2021 NFL camps, which is in July coming up here. And it's funny, I wrote down the quarterbacks who are the best quarterbacks in their respected divisions. And I want to show you how close that is on the teams that I picked on the respected divisions in the AFC and the NFC. And I think people will get a sense on how important this position now is when we're talking quarterback position. And I ranked the quarterbacks by division. Let's start in the NFC East. Jalen Hurts is nowhere in the conversation yet. Daniel Jones is nowhere in the conversation. You know what's funny? Ryan Fitzpatrick is probably in the conversation. But Dak wins that by default. He is the best quarterback in the NFC East. Okay? Does that mean they're the favorite? Their defense sucks too much. I think it's going to come down between the Giants and Washington on who ends up winning that division, because I think those are the two teams that have the best defense. And they were going to be 1-4 anyway when Dak Prescott went down. But Dak's the best quarterback in that division. How about in the AFC East? I got Buffalo winning this. Well, who's the best quarterback in that division? It's easily Josh Allen, right? I don't know what this kid from BYU is going to do. Tagovailoa, I don't know, right? I have no idea. But I know Josh Allen looks like he's a player that's continuing to improve every single time that I watch this guy get out there and play. NFC South. Come on, Tom Brady. I mean, now even Breeze being out of that division, right? Sam Darnold. Matt Ryan's pretty good. It's Brady all night. Got the Bucs winning that division. AFC South. Ryan Tannehill. I think Ryan Tannehill wins that division. I think he's the best quarterback in that division. NFC North. Aaron Rodgers, right? He's the best quarterback in that division. And he's the best. He's on the best team in that division. AFC North. Lamar Jackson. I got them winning that. You see, it's all conducive on who the guy in the signal caller is now, on who ends up winning this thing here. NFC West, Russell Wilson. Now, Matthew Stafford probably changes that dynamic a little. Kyler Murray is a pretty good-looking talent, right? I like what he's doing. What happens in San Francisco? Does Jimmy Garoppolo stay healthy? He could close that gap, but not enough to where you're going, yeah, Garoppolo's a better quarterback than Russell Wilson. He's not. And in the AFC West, you got Mahomes. Now, the division got better at the quarterback spot because of Justin Herbert in Los Angeles. Derek Carr. You know, Derek Carr is kind of an outlier, isn't he? Because people do this about him. They really like him, but would you want him to be your quarterback on your team? That'd be a no. Like if I had to pick a guy to build my team around, and he was one of the guys, and I'm not talking about the Aaron Rodgerses and the Wilsons and some of the top flight guys. I'm talking about some of the guys in the middle of the road. Like, how about this? Would you sit around and do this? Would you take Derek Carr over Justin Herbert? I don't think so. Would you take Derek Carr over Kyler Murray? I don't think so. Would you take Derek Carr over Lamar Jackson? I don't think so. You follow me? I mean, Derek Carr's a good player, but Derek Carr is really just not elite. And I always thought that he was kind of like in the middle of that road there. You know, I mean, he was kind of in the middle of the road. All right. I got a controversial topic that we're going to hit on a little bit here. And I want to get your spin on it too. And it's about vaccinations that the NFL is going to have to deal with. Now, look, this is not pimping, whether you should or whether you shouldn't. I'm not going down there. But the NFL has an issue, I think, coming up for the season. And also, I would say this to you, a perception out there by some of the biggest athletes in American sports. Yet, some of the stuff is put on us, the public here, but not some of the major stars that are in sports. I'll explain what I'm talking about. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back. National Football Show, Dan Sileo. Funny how our country works sometimes when politics get involved in how to tell people how to live their lives. You know, I mean, every American has an opportunity to live his own life, I think, as part of the American dream, right? And again, I want to make sure that we're not here giving any indication here on what side of the aisle you should be, on whether or not you should be vaccinated or not. I'm not doing that. That's not what this show's about. I don't tell people how to live their life, nor would I ever. That's for other shows and other people and other channels to do. I do not do that. Okay? Make it very clear. I'm not anti-vaccination in any way whatsoever. Nothing about that. That's not what this segment's going to be about here. But I do think there's a perception now that certain sports stars are giving off. And I want to throw this out on how the perception's being dealt with and where it's landing now. Because I tell you this all the time. You know, when I throw a topic out sometimes, you know, the big concern is where does it land? You know, when I have a take or I make a statement on something, I'm hoping it lands at this particular place so you understand that we're communicating, and that's my position. Sometimes people say something and it lands completely different, and that's where you get in trouble. So follow me here. Dak Prescott today was asked if he has been vaccinated or not. Do you know what his response was? By the way, I do believe it was the right response, but I don't believe it's going to be taken that way in the court of public opinion, which nowadays, that's probably the most important courtroom you can be in, right? The court of public opinion. The courtroom, I mean, if we learn anything today from Bill Cosby or anything, you understand today that courtroom sometimes doesn't jive with what's going on in the court of public opinion. When you think of Barry Bonds got off in a courtroom, but still the court of public opinion looks at him as a juicer. Am I right? Same thing with Roger Clemens. No matter what those guys can tell you, I never took it. Doesn't matter. The court of public opinion has already tried you and you are found guilty. They'll never look at you in any other way. Same thing with Lance Armstrong. Lance can tell people I never did. It doesn't matter. The court of public opinion is against you. That's what social media has done. It's a courtroom now. Dak Prescott was asked the question today if he had been vaccinated, as I said. And his response was this. That's a private conversation that I do not wish to, I'm paraphrasing, that I do not wish to go public and give my position on. So I will not answer it. Wow. The highest paid guy in the NFL, the face of the Dallas Cowboys, is not one of these people out front of the vaccination campaign that we're seeing everybody involved with. All the leagues are, by the way. The league now, the NFL is mandating that if you're vaccinated, you don't have to have any of the protocols that are in place that we were going through a year ago if you're vaccinated. But if you're not vaccinated, you still have to go through some of the protocols, quarantining, wearing a mask, grabbing your food and going to a particular place. They're making it so it's difficult for the people who are not vaccinated. But yet the highest paid guy in the league is not telling you whether or not he's vaccinated or not. Now, personally, do I think he has an obligation to tell you? No, I don't, because once personal health is a private issue, and quite frankly, it's against the law to actually ask somebody for their mental or their physical health records. That's why those things, when people say, we're only serving vaccinated people, it's against the law to act. Now, you can refuse service. It's your right as a business to refuse, but I don't know you have a right to ask somebody to prove it. So Dak is not answering the question. I found that odd. But this goes in line with LeBron James. LeBron James has been asked the same thing. LeBron, have you been vaccinated? LeBron says the same pretty much thing that Dak Prescott said. It's a private matter, and I don't wish to devolve whether or not I've been vaccinated or not. So you have the face of the NBA and one of the most popular athletes in American sports. And in the conversation with Michael Jordan as the greatest player of all time, giving you maybe hints that these two guys aren't vaccinated. Because if you were, wouldn't you say it? Wouldn't this be poster child? Now, maybe, get this. Here's something else. And I thought about this. Maybe Dak and LeBron don't want people using them as poster childs for the pro-campaign for vaccinations. And it should be up to each and every individual's right. I'd really love to give people the benefit of the doubt of that. And I would really love to do that. Is that more of an economic thing, being able to use? I don't know if you could do that anyway because they're professional athletes, and I don't know you could use their likeness in any way when it comes to a promotion without their consent. But do you find it odd that both Dak Prescott and LeBron James won't say whether or not they've been vaccinated? I mean, you got a lot of people. You got the President of the United States. You've got leagues MLB, NFL, NBA on their high horse when it comes to promoting vaccinations. And you got the face of your league, both of your leagues, that won't come front and center and say whether or not they've been vaccinated. Me, personally, I don't think they have been. And I can make that assessment and I can make that innuendo because you know why? It's one or the other. And since they're not answering it, you leave it open-ended. And you leave it for hammerheads like me and others to sit here and do this. Well, I don't think he is. Prove it to me. If I get this, if I have to prove to you that I have been vaccinated to walk into a stadium, shouldn't Dak Prescott have to prove to the public that he's vaccinated? Why is it good for the fans to have to prove it? And it's not okay for Dak to prove it that he's been vaccinated. How do you get around that? So when I walk into an NBA arena, when LeBron James is playing, and it's mandated that I'm to be vaccinated going into Staples Arena to go see the Lakers play, and the face of your franchise refuses to say whether or not he has, why is it okay for him? It's a question. Okay? Not anti. It's a question. Why is that okay for him? If I was an NFL fan and I was walking into Gerry's world and I found out his position, and this is Dak Prescott's position. Look it up. Dak said it. This is not Dan Sileo making this up here. It's Dak saying it. You tell me. Is it right for Dak not to have to divulge it? But I have to go into my wallet and here's my vaccination card. I don't think that's fair. And I think you're going to get blowback from the fans on that. Okay? That's why the NFL is doing every single thing in their power to get as many as they possibly can to get vaccinated, because it's a bad look when you walk into a stadium and a star quarterback on your football team's not been or refuses to say whether he's been. But you see, the mainstream media won't report on that. Okay? They won't hammer a guy like LeBron James or Dak Prescott. I don't know why. You'll hammer anybody else that hasn't been. How many times do you see people now being put on blast on Twitter or being put on blast when it comes to a news source like CNN or Fox News when they find out that a particular politician or what have you has not been put on any kind of notice that he said that he's been vaccinated or not? Those guys are constantly being hounded, not these guys. I think you got a problem with that. I surely have a problem with that. Okay, let's do this here. We talked a little bit about Jalen Hurts. I really like this kid. Do I think this guy is going to be a superstar quarterback? Yet to be determined. I'm not gonna sit here on June 30th and sit here and tell you that I think this guy's going to be a flop. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give the kid the benefit of the doubt because you know why? He's built somewhat equity up with me and how he's handled his career. You know, we had Howard Eskin on with us a couple months ago, and Howard was like, you know, he decided to quit Alabama. Okay, you can look at it that way. I just thought that, look, probably Saban went to him and said, we're going with Tagovailoa. We're going to go with him, man. He's my guy. I'm going to go with him. I think he's the better quarterback. Maybe he's the better thrower. I don't know. They went with him, and you could make that assessment. He quit on Alabama. All right. I don't look at it that way because I was a transfer, and I didn't quit on Maryland. I just wanted to go to a place to play, and that's why I chose Miami. I wanted to play, and I wasn't getting the opportunity to play at Maryland. And so Jalen Hurts now was asked a question yesterday on giving advice to Trey Lance that both, you know, on to Mac Jones. And Mac Jones up at New England now, he was basically asked, what kind of advice would you give him? And he basically said this. He goes, listen, this guy's had a very interesting career. He's had to sit behind Tua and myself and learn and be patient. The most important intangible that you could possibly have as a quarterback is patience and to sit and learn and to ask as many questions. Think about Mac Jones. Played 1-star year at Alabama, right? He sat behind Jalen and he sat behind Tua Tagovailoa. And he put up an iconic year last year playing with great football players. He said all he can do is to put into practice what he's learned on being patient. You're going to have struggles, but do all the things you did when you were at Alabama because it will come to you. He speaks highly, Jalen does, of Mac Jones. And from all accounts, it looks like Mac Jones could be your starting quarterback on the opening day for the New England Patriots. I think that would be an incredible story if he was able to knock out Cam Newton from that starting job. And all of a sudden, here you go from a national championship football team into being the starting quarterback for Bill Belichick. That'd be some story. All right. Appreciate everybody coming aboard today. Thank you so much. Krause, awesome. Love you, Cal. Thank you so much for what you do when you're throwing out all of our bites there on the internet there. Don't forget also, you can catch any of the show if you've missed it on JAKIB Media channel. We'll catch you tomorrow going 4 to 6 Eastern time, and we'll see you on the flip side.